Written by MortifyMore. The roads are not safe. Since the start of settlements, the paths between have always been haunted by those who are out of sight. In the early days, the highwayman was the road specter, the fear-tasting beast of the space between towns. But where once was the glint of a blade and death-kissed gun, there is now none. Our vehicles are too fast steel, too insect-like. Countless beetles screaming over concrete, and even the loneliest roads are barely seen by speed runners on their way to the beaches. Yet, people forget, for every story merely waits, undeterred by the bounding buck. Those highwaymen that were not men focused on the stricken, the slowed, the ones that stop to help. And they fall with shattered teeth on those who have forgotten that the roads were never safe. And on those cold night drives, where the flurry of white fury falls upon the road, I find myself glancing at the rear views, watching for the glint of teeth and death-kissed eyes. Several years ago, I received a call about a wreck a few miles down Route 249, about 10 minutes south of Glasgow. It was around 7 o'clock. I was parked on the city's outskirts in my cruiser, too aware of the piling snow and what it meant for the days to come. There had been talk about an incoming blizzard, mostly rumors. Nobody really knows how the weather works, as far as I'm concerned. But if you had to ask someone about coming storms, it'd best be the animals who went away in their holes early that winter. That's what was on my mind when that call came. Vanishing animals and an uptick in accidents. Dispatch told me a man had slid off the road, landed himself in a snow-filled ditch. A tow was scheduled to come, but there were concerns with the brewing white winds, and an officer at the scene would make people feel safer. Plus, the tow would be later than usual, not only because of the adverse conditions, but the time. Some disgruntled driver would have to strap on his boots, gown some coats, make his way to the truck, all because of some new contract deal with the insurance. 24-hour towing, snow or shine. I was about 10 minutes to the man, and the trucker would take about half an hour, so I kicked the cruiser into gear and hoped I wouldn't wind up in piles of that precursor blizzard. It seemed the closer I got to the spot, the more the wind picked up and made a snowy fog around the road. Where this route is, it's a bit flat. Most of Kentucky is hill and trees, but not here. Imagine the Arizona desert, but instead of red and brown rock, put grasses, maybe the occasional farm, some trees littered here or there. That's all the summer, though. In the winter, it's all that swirling fog, whirling wind, and screaming air. The snow changes direction often and buries anything not able to move. Since the roads are less traveled, the salt trucks take their time, leading to disasters like tonight where the winter decides to come hard and early. But I'd been a cop in the area for a long time, and the straight road isn't hard to navigate if you aren't blazing by. By the time I made it to that car, though, 20 minutes had passed. I saw it breaking through that white fog, that winter veil. Black steel butt in the air, deeper than the call said. Snow buried the top. The car looked, as the call said, driven off into a ditch. The snow probably hid the deepness. The man was nowhere to be seen. I flashed my lights, honked the horn, turned on my blue and red. The man did not exit the car. The wind began howling. The door was pushed shut by the wind when I tried to exit the cruiser. The flurry had seemed to grow into the prodigal storm, concentrating itself a bit further off so that we were hit by the worst winds, the eye wall of winter. The worry that the man had tried to walk to town by himself came, but surely the man would have known how far out he was. Walking in the snowstorm was maybe not suicide, but stupid, and only stupid if he was headed back towards Glasgow. I stood right outside the rest end of the car, looking down to see if anyone was inside. I saw nobody. I tried the door with considerable force and it came open, revealing no trapped man or anything besides fast food bags. A sudden odor like rotting food came and I backed off into the whip of the wind and that chill of the nose. I unhooked my flashlight, held my breath, went back in. The smell came from several fast food bags on the passenger side. In the back were discarded magazines and some candy wrappers. I was puzzled. The man must have left, headed in the opposite direction of me, for I would have seen a man wandering by himself on the road, even with the storm, right? The wind continued its howl as I stomped over the snow to the cruiser. I'll have to make a few calls, I thought. Let the tow company know the roads were not safe for such a trip, that there might be a man headed south on the way to Dry Fork? Etoile? That would be suicide. As I stepped in the cruiser, I thought about the nearby farms and considered maybe he had gone to one of them. Not that you would see any with the snow, but maybe he wandered west instead, found the frozen grasses and decided to try his luck wandering there. Stupid, but not suicidal. It would be harder to find him that way. I sighed hot air, picked up the phone. No service. I tried again. No service. Damn it. Now what? I'll have to head back, find a place with some service. I cranked the engine, held my breath until the car revved like normal, jittered in place, ready to go. I started to turn the wheel and hit the gas, looking at the nose-sunken car again. Then I stopped. How did he reach dispatch? I sat there in my cruiser, in that white storm. The question seemed to stick like frost to my thoughts, creeping towards the edge of logic, threatening to completely take over. The storm. Yeah, the storm. 20 minutes ago, the storm wouldn't have been as bad, right? And maybe the man didn't have any issues with the phone. That made sense, right? Except what? The snow piling on the cruiser began to worry me, and I knew any further lingering would end with me stuck out here too. Maybe even end with me walking towards Glasgow or those hidden farms. I started my turn again, easing into the snow, praying the wheels wouldn't slide. A dog began to bark. I didn't register it at first, beneath the howling wind, but it continued and grew fierce. I whirled around in my seat, trying to locate where it was coming from. What's a dog doing out here? Was it attracted by my flashing lights? It must be from a nearby farm, my thoughts stormed. The barking continued, and for a moment I worried that there was no dog. Instead, it was the storm barking. Then it stopped, and there came a voice. "Hey, sir, are you okay?" The barking returned, but this time I saw a figure behind the cruiser. It stood about 6 feet upright and undeterred by the harsh snow. A few seconds passed with me unable to make a move. The whole situation became unreal. The missing man, the wreck, the figure, and the barking dog, and the storm. Once again, the barking stopped and the voice came, asking if I was okay. Then the barking resumed as if on cue. I stepped out of the cruiser, unsure what to tell this farmer. What else could they be? The worry of the dog attacking crossed my mind. Wind tore at my hair, snow crunched under my feet. The flashing cruiser lights made the snow scream red and blue. I turned to face the farmer and the barking dog. The snow obscured the farmer, making them blurred fragments, black shapes between streaks of white. The dog was buried beneath the winds, unable to be seen. I took a step towards the shape, letting them know I was heading back to town, asked them if they could be on the lookout for a man in trouble. Another step in, I froze, staring at the figure now more in focus. The farmer's head was abnormal. It moved in quick movements, rhythmic with that barking. And under that howling wind, that nagging feeling which finally froze my nerves, the bark seemed to not come from a dog or the storm, but from the farmer. I stood there, watching in disbelief. The barking stopped, and so did the farmer's jerking head.
"Hey, sir, are you okay?"
The voice now seemed obviously off, as if the words were slurred together and at a low pitch. Then the farmer's head jerked up and down. I ran back to the cruiser, slammed the door shut, started the engine, spitting out, "Come on, come on." I just wanted to get out of there, out of the snow and away from the wreck and that barking thing. Terror grabbed my throat, my arms and legs and body. The coldness of the storm paled to the simplicity of horror inside the storm. A hand slammed on the window, barking. The shape. Up this close, snow clumped to the shape and the features were hidden. The engine whirred, but my hand still jiggled the keys, unable to keep up with the pace of the white nightmare. Barking. I fumbled the keys and turned the car back off. No, turn. The engine revved back online. The bark stopped. The barks resumed. I found myself crying, blubbering words I can't remember. Then the wheels were screaming, splitting snow out beneath them and trying to bite down on the road underneath the ice. The palm on the window turned into a fist, pounding on the glass and barking. I reached for my gun. My hands wouldn't pull the gun, scared that pulling it out would mean leaving the car. Meant facing that barking thing, the human shape that barked like a large dog. I began to pray. Pray that something would happen to make it go away. The door handle jumped, was fumbled with from outside. Then the door began to open. The ice that had taken hold of the cruiser's steel shell cracking away with screams. And then I saw 2 headlights coming towards us. 2 headlights on a large truck. The tow had arrived. I saw the headlights stop then disappear. The barking had stopped, as did the door, and the shape of the winter terror started towards the truck. Behind that snow, I saw the truck's driver's door open. In a new shape, this one round and large, joined the snow blur and began to walk towards the winter thing. The nightmare cacophony erupted with new barks in full force, a snarling and rabid yowl to finish the chaos. Suddenly, the barking thing lurched forward and jumped. The 2 black shapes connected, and there was a scream. I panicked. Instead of getting out, instead of rescuing the man who had come out in the winter hell, I jammed the key forward, set the ignition blaring. The tires screeched and I was off, trying to get the sounds of the screams out of my mind, trying not to see the snow that bled red near the truck. Then I was driving away, swerving on the roads, trying not to end up like the missing man's car. I found my balance and stormed, steel-bound towards Glasgow. I tried my phone again but dropped it. My hands were shaking, only able to stay still gripped to the cold rubber wheel. They did not try to leave again until the storm had died down, and I saw the lights of the familiar town. I pulled into the station, unsure of where to go in the night-black whiteness. I got out and sat on the steps of the building. Instead of calling for backup, I sat there and cried and let the gentle snow cover me. In the following days, 2 facts became known to me. The first was that the tow truck was reported the next morning. No blood was in the report, just an empty and battery-dead truck near a wreck, with both drivers missing. Some people showed up, not me, I called in sick, to fix the mess. I had been asked what I saw there, but I lied and admitted only to the wrecked car and the missing driver, and that I must have passed out before reporting it. Normally, they would have pressed further, but I think my sallow face told the story enough. The second thing was that the car, or rather the wreck, had been reported a few weeks earlier. That around the same spot, maybe the spot, a man called in saying he needed assistance. There was a storm that night too, but rain instead of snow. 2 officers went to check it out and said there was only the ditched car. Maybe it's a coincidence, but I can't help thinking about it. Thinking about how that rotting food in the car seemed too sunken, too abandoned for a sudden ditch dive. Sometimes my thoughts wander, and I wonder if the farmers nearby know of anything. If any of them ever saw someone or something use a wreck as a diversion, as a trap of sorts. There's stories of highwaymen using broken down wagons to lure people in, make them put their guard down just in time for a bullet to reach their victims' hearts. Even in modern times, there's parked or wrecked cars that are out there by groups of thieves, people that play on the kindness of others. But what lumbered up to my cruiser that night? That thing that didn't mind the snow and spoke like a dog. I try not to think too hard about it. Try not to remove that safe whiteness of the storm that hid its features. I would not like what's underneath. I'm still on the force and I still drive that road, but only when storms aren't there. At night, when the wind picks up and whispers in the night, I try not to go anywhere. I'd hate to be out there and hear that barking under that sinister wind. See that shape that's not a man coming at me, and let the shroud of winter fade away.
Thank you for listening. You can probably handle another horror story, right?